Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome all new listeners, and welcome back to those who have heard my content in the past. If you want to know how to put it all together when managing athlete care, you need to tune into this episode. Before I go on to the podcast, what is new? What is better in life? Um, Everything is better in life. It is Halloween. It is the fall in San Diego. I just got off teaching my management of the barbell athlete CEU course. My kids are excited about having more candy in the house. Um, my wife is not excited about that. Yeah, no, life is great. Inconsistent fitness, it's been an interesting one, just because of so much things going on. I had a leadership conference the week prior. I have the barbell course this weekend, and I'm off to more development this weekend as well in Texas. So yeah, more and more things happening all the time, but otherwise life is fantastic. Okay. Why are we talking about how to put it all together? So this was off of conversations from the management of the barbell athlete course, and it really just got me fired up. We were doing whiteboard sessions. We were reviewing why athletes have pain, where our profession is moving, where we have challenges, and how we're a sinking ship. All of that to say, we need to learn how to manage athletes better. And the conversation was about, um, I just didn't see it that way. I didn't think we could do that. That was the response I got. And in this episode, I'm going to outline exactly how to look at and approach an athlete. No way than no no single way that you've done this before. And yes, I'm not talking about manual and exercise and all these other things. I'm telling you how to approach this person completely different in how you are going to help them now and in the future. And that is very different than what you're currently doing. And that is the feedback that I got from the attendees this weekend. And I am on fire. So this episode, if you've heard my episodes, this one's a good one to like save, star. You'll need this down the line when you think you're doing great and you're not, your outcomes are not there. This is going to be a good episode just to kick you in the pants, give you a friendly reminder of what you do and what you should be doing and where our profession is going to go and where I'm going to help you down the road. This is a great one. So let's kick this off. All right. All right. So at the beginning of the course, this barbell CEU course, I asked the attendees, I said, hey, what are the things that you want to get out of this course? And they said two things. They said, I want to know modifications for barbell athletes, right? Like when they're hurt, what modifications can I do? And I was like, that's a no-brainer. What else? And they said, I want to learn, Therex corrective exercises for these people. I said, no problem. We can definitely do that. And I said, those are the two main things. If we get those two things done in this course, you'll be happy that you attended. Yes. All right. Well, they got that and way more. If anybody who attended is listening, you'll know the context of this episode, and I hope it fires you up and you remember our whiteboard sessions and everything inside the course that just fuels you, because the deep root of what we do as a professional, like why you got into this industry, is because like you just love helping people, right? Like you want to help people get more active, do more things. And whether you are in an acute setting, so like you work in a hospital and like somebody just had a heart attack, you're trying to get them to do more, right? Get back to their life. If you work in neuro, like you have people who have strokes, and you want them to have a better quality of life than their current circumstances allow. And that's the same in orthopedic and sports, right? So in ortho, you might have somebody hip replacement, knee replacement, whatever that may be, and you're just trying to get them to the quality of life that they want. In sports, you have a ACL, slap repair, whatever it is, and you just want to get them back to the baseball field or wrestling match or whatever it is that they want. You're ultimately trying to get somebody back to a destination, right? So I think that's all very, very clear. Like that's why you get into this profession. That's why I'm here. That's why you're here. And that's so, so true. But there's a lot of logistical challenges that are going to be hitting our profession in the near future, and it's good for you to know. It's good to be aware of it, and then think of, are you is this why you got in the field, right? Like you got in the field because you want to help somebody get there. there's going to be so many challenges with insurance and complacency and people actually being compliant and doing all these things. There's always going to be these challenges, but what lies ahead is how, instead of trying to get a patient to be more compliant, because I think we can do that, try and do it all day, give them reminders, text messages, emails, home exercise programs. And when you get to this point, you feel exhausted. You're like, I'm doing everything possible. What else do I need to do to make sure that they're actually doing their stuff? The question becomes, are they even doing the right things? Are we fighting an uphill battle that we won't lose or that we won't win? And that's a really good conversation to have, because are we attacking the wrong things? Is our energy and attention going to the wrong things, even though that we've been taught and trained that these are the things that are going to get people better? I'm going to show you a little different perspective today, and I shared it with the course. And the more physical therapists I talk to, the more I mentor, the more I realize we all have the same problems. Like, we are all empathetic, helping human beings that feel stuck. Maybe you feel that there's a couple different gaps here. There's people who are in PT school. They think they're going to conquer the world, and they're about to get hit in the face with reality. People who are 1 to 3 years in and really don't believe anybody because they just need to feel the stress and challenge themselves. They have to learn for themselves. And the people who are 3 to 5 years out are, because they're concerned that this is, maybe it's the job, maybe it's something that they feel stuck, and maybe it's the employer, maybe it's management. If I try another job, it's going to feel better. And by 5, you figured it out. You're like, I don't even know if I want this profession anymore. So wherever you are in that storyline, or if you've made it through that process, guess what? You almost recycle all the way through. So for those who are stuck and questioning, the approach that I take with athletes is very, for a lot of physical therapists that I mentor, they're like, it's very refreshing. Like, you can see it from a different light, that we actually have a huge, profound impact on people that we haven't even tapped to. Less than 1% of our profession has been able to do. So I'm going to outline the typical physical therapy approach, and then truly how to put this all together when you're managing an athlete, like everything together, and not just simply corrective exercises, impairments, and these type of things. So here's a traditional model, and this might sound like you. Patient comes in, history of low back pain, saw primary care. They've had it for 4 months, saw primary care about 6 to 8 weeks ago, finally got into physical therapy. They had x-rays, those are negative, hasn't had an MRI yet. This person is not uh, they're sedentary. They don't move that much. They're maybe a little overweight, and they have, guess what? They have tight hamstrings. They have a poor core, and they're struggling to be able to bend down and tie their shoes without pain. And you ask them, okay, how long has this been going on? You try and figure out what this is. Is it a disc? Is it sciatic nerve? I mean, all these other things. You're trying to figure out the impairment. And you go through all the testing, forward flexion, maybe a McKenzie-based approach, whatever your flavor is, and you do hamstring length testing, you do manual muscle testing. You're like, oh, I see. The problem is you have a poor core and your hamstrings are tight. That's going to fix you, right? So you go through this whole process, and usually by visit 3, 4, or 5, they stop showing up. They show up late. They're not as motivated to come in, and you're like, this person's just not compliant. Gosh, if they could only do the exercise, they would do great. And all the while, you get them, I don't know, 30, 40% better. They got down from 5 out of 10 to 3 out of 10. And they self-discharge, or they don't get the outcomes, and they have to go back to the surgeon. They go to the MRI, blah, blah, blah. All right. Let's take a different approach. And I'm going to outline how I do this. There's 4 things that you need to be asking on the initial evaluation that you're currently not doing or not doing well. The first one is frequency, intensity, time, and type of everything that they do. So, how often do you work out? What is it that you do to work out? If you garden, how many times? What's the intensity? How long are you forward flexed? How often? How many days? What's the length of time that you're doing this? Maybe it's an athlete who has a shoulder pain. They're pitching. How often do you pitch? When is it? When are you in season? When are you out of season? Um, how many fastballs? How many do you go above 80 miles an hour? What's the type of fastballs that you throw, right? All those questions are very interesting. And then, what do you do for recovery? So, how much do you sleep? What are your eating habits, right? And you're like, why are you asking all these questions? How does that change what I do in my evaluation? All right. So that is the frequency, intensity, and type, time and type. Then you typically ask past medical history. Have you had any surgeries to your back or your shoulder, whatever this is? No, I haven't. Have you seen any other providers for this? Actually, I have. I went to massage once, and that really didn't help. Okay. Any other services? Yeah, I tried acupuncture one time. Sounds great. So now you got the frequency, intensity, time, and type. Then you have their past medical history. Okay. Then you find their internal and external stressors. So that's what we're talking about with the recovery process. What do you do for, to stay active? Basically, how do they become happier? How do they release, dopamine? How do they get the feeling of feeling better? Next is, once you find out internal stressors, how frustrated they've been, how little they sleep, how aggravated they are in their current life, whatever it is. And then from there, you can figure out what makes the pain feel better and worse. Like, is it flexion? Is it extension? Is it sleeping on their side? Is it sleeping on their back? And those are the four parts that I ask: the FIT principle, past medical history, internal and external stressors, and their aggravators and alleviators. Once you have those four, they set a better stage. Okay. There's only real three reasons why people develop pain. Number one, well, overall, it's an excess of stress or strain applied to a specific area over time. That's an insidious onset, right? So let's take out people who've experienced trauma, right? So anybody who has had a motor vehicle accident, they fell from stairs, whatever. Let's take trauma out of that. So you and I walk around with pain all day long, right? Back pain, knee pain, whatever it is. But we don't seek out help because it doesn't impact what you do on a daily basis. The minute it impacts you is the day that you seek out help. And the good news is you have the background and education to alleviate pain yourself, or you can identify how to modify things. So that's why you might not have pain on a regular basis. But the minute you do, you need help. And that's why people come to see you, because they're like, basically, they're saying, hey, I've had an excessive load of stress or strain applied to my back for the last 4 months, and I haven't been able to figure out what it is and pinpoint exactly what it is that has caused it, or else I would have not come to see you. That's basically what they're saying when they have low back pain. So if you have excessive strain and stress applied to a region over time, that causes an overload of stress and now creates pain. So once you determine that, there's only three reasons why it came about on insidious onset of pain. Okay, no trauma. Number one is they have poor mobility, right? Like they're just stiff as a board. They can't forward flex. Their ankles are stiff. Their hips are stiff, and they can't squat without pain. So there's a mobility component, right? And you can break that down to all the fancy names and titles and exercises that you want. I get it. Number two is they have poor motor control, and they need support to be able to fix that and identify that. Now, when you have, and I categorize these as capacity and capability. Capacity is, do they even have the capacity to fully move without restriction or strain? And if they have tightness or mobility issues, that already is a big problem. They can't achieve full range of motion. So somebody who wants to be able to pitch but doesn't have full external rotation or has limited internal rotation is already going to have excessive stress or strain because they don't have the full range. Perfect. So if they have the capacity, meaning they have the mobility, they'll be able to actually complete the movement. Now, if they have all the mobility in the world, there's only two other reasons why they continue to have pain. It could be a motor control issue. Well, they just don't have the awareness in space. They don't have the stability to be able to control whatever it is that they have. So they have a capacity problem, mobility, or a motor control issue, which is a capability. So capacity is, do they have the range to execute? Number two, do they have the capability to use that full motion? And you might say, well, every once in a while I get athletes who have full mobility and they have great motor control. There's only one more reason why people have pain. And that's because of their current training or lack of, or their recovery. So one is a stressor. Training is a stressor to the body, right? And recovery is an alleviator. It helps alleviate, it helps recover from the excessive strain. So if you have great mobility, great motor control, now you have to look at, is it a training problem? Are they overtraining and they don't know how to program, or they don't know how, if they're training 7 days a week? Or is it are they under recovered? Do they not sleep enough? Do they have poor nutrition? Do they have good hydration? Those are the only three reasons why people have pain. Capacity, which is motor control, capacity, which is mobility, motor control, which is capability, and training and recovery challenges. Those are the only three reasons. So the question is, all of those help you answer three things when you help an athlete. Number one, why did they develop pain? Why did they develop pain? Not what tissue is it, not that they had tight hamstrings and they had pain. I think that's bullshit, because people walk around with tight hamstrings and don't have pain. So you can't say that tight hamstring caused the pain. Tight hamstrings is partially a reason, but something happened in their daily life over the last 4 months that increased the tension to those hamstrings, which caused pain. So don't tell me hamstring length is going to fix their pain. You got to fix the root. So what was it? All you did and identified that was that they have a capacity problem, a mobility problem. I get it. But why did they develop that? There was something in their training or recovery process that didn't go well. And it could have been, well, I started gardening more often, or I moved houses and I was bending and flexing to do that. Great. It wasn't because you had tight hamstrings. It's because you had a large change in fitness or exercise, which is your training. Or I was really stressed at work and I'm an accountant and I couldn't sleep for 3 or 4 days in a row. And I kept going to the gym. Oh, it's because you didn't change your gym process. You changed your recovery process. That's why people develop pain, not because they have tight hamstrings, not because they have those other things. Those are contributions onto what is the problem. The question is, why do people have pain, and why do they continue to have pain, and why are they coming to see you? That is more important than what is the problem. Because the minute you can understand why people have pain, you can address the root. And guess what? Your skills as a physical therapist will be needed less. And that is where we are going to go as a profession. Let me explain. Three things you have to figure out. Okay. As you go through your assessment, yes, you're 100% going to figure out is it a capacity problem, is it a capability problem, or a training/recovery problem? Yes, I get that. So the next question is, how do you figure out why somebody has pain? That's undergoing those four big things in the initial evaluation: past medical history, and looking at the FIT principle, looking at internal, external stressors, and then figuring out aggravating factors and relieving factors. That is how you're going to figure out why something came about. The next component is, what is it that we're treating? What's the problem? And what are we going to do about it? So why is the storyline that came into it? Do you truly understand why your patients developed pain? Because that's an important part of what you're going to fix long term. But we are specialists inside what the problem is, and we're going to do right now. For instance, that's why we have provocative testing. Is it a medial meniscus? Is it a posterior labrum? Is it a facet problem? Those are what tissue is it? What impairment caused that? What challenge does that bring them? You are a what specialist. What is the problem? What exercises are we going to do? What? It's a bunch of whats. The real root lies in why they developed it. Once you figure out why on the initial evaluation, on the subjective portion, then you're going to figure out the what, which is on the assessment and objective testing. Then you have to figure out, when is this going to get better? Why it started, what's the problem, what you're going to do, and when is this going to get better? All right. Physical therapists have a challenge answering two questions: why it happened and when it's going to get better. But man, you have no problems answering what the problem is, because you will do 57 tests and give them 57 exercises. What is currently not the problem for you? It's why it happened and when is it going to get better? And that is where our profession will go next. Truly being able to figure out why somebody is in pain and how long it's going to take them to get out of pain. Now, here's where more physical therapists have low confidence and they feel really bad because they can't commit to a date and time that somebody will get better. For instance, Sally asks you, how long is this going to take? You have no confidence. You're like, I don't want to commit because I'm insecure about how well this is actually going to go. And I'm not going to commit. So I'm going to tell you, let's just take it week by week. Yeah, got it. So there's low confidence. You have a low barrier to progress and give a prognosis. So you keep somebody hanging by a thread every single week because you have low self-confidence with that. How bad is that from a professional standpoint? We have all these skills, but because we don't feel good about projecting and telling somebody that they're actually going to get better in a certain time, because we don't want to commit to that, we hold people by a thread every single time. No wonder they don't come back to see us. They get tired of hearing, next week you'll get better. We'll check in next week. That's why they don't come in to see you. That's why. It's not because they weren't compliant, it's because there was no value. You just kept saying, we're gonna keep checking in. Imagine your surgeon telling you that, right? Imagine an accountant telling you that. Imagine somebody that a psychologist that comes, you go to see them. Hey, I've been having really big anxiety and depression recently. Like, when is this going to get better? And they're like, well, let's just come next week. We'll work on that next week. And you're like, oh, okay, good. I really hope this depression, anxiety goes away. Well, good. We'll come next week. All right, it's next week now. It's not getting any better. When is it going to get better? We'll just take it week by week. You're making good progress. We'll see you next week. How would you feel on the other end? Horrible, horrible as a patient. Guess what? That's what's happening to every single one of your patients. So the question is, what's the solution, Chris? How do I put this all together? So here's how you put it together. Okay. Ultimately, you have to understand how to manage an athlete's expectation and know what to do with them once they're out of pain. Let me help you understand this. You have to you have to understand all domains of pain. Why people have it, how to manage it, and how to prevent it. Okay. Whenever you work with a personal trainer, whenever an athlete works with a strength and conditioning coach, that strength coach doesn't say, hey, I'm going to help you get your back squat up by 60 pounds this year. But I'm actually not going to program for you for 3 months. I'm going to tell you week by week, we're going to see how much you progress. So every single week, I'm going to check and we're going to make up numbers every week. You're going to come in to see me and I'm going to tell you what to do. But we're really not going to plan anything out. And all we're going to do is just keep getting things heavier as we go. There's no progressive overload. There's no thought process, no strategy in doing that. Well, you might say, well, in strength and conditioning, that's normal. But it actually is very normal in physical therapy as well. Can you project right now how long it'll take somebody to get to gain mobility in their ankle? How long would that take? If you had a healthy athlete right now and you said, hey, they need 5 degrees of dorsiflexion, not injured, how long would that take you? 8 weeks, 2 months? Can you improve on somebody? Yeah, I think I can. Great. How long would a post-op, how long does it take for neuromuscular control to be demonstrated? 4 to 6 weeks. Great. So if somebody has a neuromuscular control problem, a capability problem, can you tell them accurately how long it's going to take? Sure, 4 to 6 weeks to just get stabilized. Got it. What if they had a mobility problem on top of that? Well, it would take you 6 to 8 weeks. Great. So if somebody has a motor control problem and a mobility problem, they might get better around the 12, 14, 16 week mark. That's pretty accurate. Got it. What's interesting is if that same case came to you, you would say, let's just take it week by week. But now you can accurately say, it's probably going to take you 12 to 14 weeks to get better. The minute you can project is when you can actually now start filling in the gap with what would I do to make this ankle better over 8 weeks. And then what would I do to improve their neuromuscular control for the next 6 weeks? Guess what? Then you just blend those two programs and then you set them off onto the next phase. That's what strength and conditioning professionals do. That's what personal trainers do. Yet physical therapists were like, "Oh, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if they're going to get better. So I'm just gonna try it session by session." You need to understand how to plan and have a prognosis. You have to be able to do that. That allows you to forecast and give people projected outcomes so they can actually see the value in what you do. And guess what? Your compliance would increase just purely off of that. The next question is, well, what's the next problem after that, Chris? What about how do I really make an impact? This was a conversation from the barbell course. When people are trying to get back to sport, there's an interesting gray area. I think the fancy words in PT is like rehab to performance, right? Whatever that means. There's a gray zone of when somebody's out of pain to get them back to sport. But the challenge becomes if we wait, say, for instance, 6 to 8 weeks, and we keep them in neuromuscular control, we work on their mobility, and we get them back to sport, there's two things that have stopped during that time is working on their central nervous system development, their intensity, their speed, their conditioning, um, central nervous system development, and their anaerobic or energy system development. So meaning if somebody's a soccer player, but now they have an ankle sprain and you work on their mobility, nice control, but they're in season, you now have a deconditioned athlete. Your job is to maintain some form of fitness while you're rehabbing them so that when they go back to sport, they haven't lost as much conditioning. But physical therapists won't address this. So now what they've done is they got this ankle perfect, but now they have a deconditioned athlete, which puts them at a higher risk of actually getting hurt. So if you get to a point in your career that you're like, can get people better, but I know they just keep getting hurt, or they're non-compliant, it's because you don't understand the full spectrum. The full spectrum comes from being able to manage acute injury management on the field, being able to help them inside the clinic, maintaining this high central nervous system intensity and energy system development, aerobic and anaerobic conditioning, while bridging them back to sport, understanding plyometrics and sports performance rehab, getting them back in. Lastly is designing strength and conditioning programs so they don't have to come to see you when they're hurt again, and you can keep them fit and healthy and project and figure out when they're more likely to get hurt. Who is at the forefront of these lines to project that? Imagine if you saw some athlete's schedule and you know they have two tournaments back to back and they have finals during that time. So they're not going to sleep. Now they're going to have high intensity of training cycles with low sleep. Can you think of a time when they're going to get hurt? Yeah. When they have low sleep, a lot of practices, multiple tournaments, high stressors at school, that just means that that's why they got hurt. So now when you have an athlete who got hurt and they had an ankle sprain, ask them, what happened around that time? Did you have multiple tournaments? Did you have multiple games? What happened at school? But they wouldn't be able to tie in that they had a lot of training and poor recovery. So you can easily say, well, it's because they had, poor ankle stability. Bullshit. They had they had poor ankle stability before finals. They had poor ankle stability before their tournaments. Why didn't it sprain then? Is because they all culminated into one time, which is stress and strain to a tissue across a specific time. That's why people develop pain, not because they had poor ankle stability. Yeah, that's a contributor, but the reason why it was the perfect storm. So your ability to figure that out helps you fix it faster, but more importantly, prevent and figure out when it's likely to happen again. So I mentioned on this, you got to figure out why people develop pain. That's the whole reason why you have to figure it out. You're experts at what to do, but we're not experts in is how to forecast and project and figure out exactly when somebody's going to be at risk to happen again. That is where we make the biggest impact. That's where we can help the most athletes on this planet is you get them out of pain, help them figure out when it's going to get better, and lastly, how to prevent it from happening. Why? Because we can make the most bang for our buck helping people stay healthy, not get out of pain. Let me say that one more time. We can help people stay healthy, not just get out of pain. So, where are we going to make the most bang for our buck professionally inside our communities? Understanding acute injury management, figuring out why people develop stress and strain, get them out of pain, give them an exact timeline of how long it's going to take them to get out of pain, when it's going to get better. And number 3 or 4 is to get them stronger, more resilient, so it doesn't happen again. Basically, working in strength and conditioning to identify risks so that people don't have to miss 6, 8, 12 weeks. And that'll give you a better patient who is more active, more compliant, because you are now controlling the variables that are most important, which is stress and strain across time, and not allowing it to them or their coach or their personal trainer or anybody else who doesn't understand that. These patients are walking around all the time without any form of support. They're hoping their coach knows everything, but the coach is overworked, has too many athletes, doesn't even know how to warm people up. They work with a personal trainer or a strength coach who knows they have an ability to get them faster and bigger, better, and stronger, but they don't correlate it to their training cycles. They don't understand where their stressors are in school and everything else. And so then you have somebody who's pushing them high. You have a coach who's pushing with more intensity. And now the athlete gets hurt and they dump it on the physical therapist. Physical therapist says, great. It was the whole time. It had nothing to do with your personal trainer or your coach. It just had everything to do with weak hips, poor core, and ankle instability. Do you not see how you're missing the big picture? You're just so zoomed in at joints and impairments and all the other things that everybody walks around with that so happens to coincide with their injury. But what you don't know is why this happened. Figure out exactly why this happened so it doesn't happen again. And it has nothing to do with hamstring length. Stop blaming it on that. It's only because that's all you know. You don't know how to think any differently. And I want to share this because it is powerful. I've done it in San Diego. I have 3 locations. I run a cash-based business. It has nothing to do with cash, has nothing to do with time. It's just the process. It's just how you approach people. I promise you, this is how they do it in the pros. This is how they do it at a high level in collegiate sports. And that's how you keep people healthy across time. My point in saying I've done this is because it exists in the elite level care in pro athletes. It exists inside collegiate athletes, but it doesn't exist at the community level. And I'm here to show you exactly what that is. I want the world to know this because it is where a profession needs to go. You know where it doesn't need to go? Into more manual therapy, more mobilizations, more Therax, which just reinforces this small wheel down here. And where you make the biggest impact is going to community level, working with coaches, working with strength coaches, working with personal trainers, so you can identify risks, help them modify things so people don't have to come see you and miss 6 weeks. That is where you make the greatest impact. So if you feel stuck, complacent, burnt out, whatever it is that you don't have athletes on your schedule, it's because you're looking at their ankles. You're not looking at everything outside of it, the external stressors, their training volume, their intensity, their recovery process, where you can have a bigger impact. And so if you feel stuck looking at these things and you feel like you're doing the same things, you're saying getting the same non-compliant, complacent, sedentary patients on your schedule, it's your fault. It's because you're treating them as such. And where you need to get them to do is a little bit more training, recover a little faster, and that'll help with pain management and stress and strain across time while you work on their hamstrings, core, and everything else. I'm saying there's 3 components. You're missing one massive one of them. You will look at capacity and motor and mobility all day. You will look at motor control and stability all day. What you won't look at, and it's staring you in the face, is their training and their recovery processes. That will help you figure out why it happened, how long it's going to take, and how to prevent it from getting there in the future. That is a perspective I want you to take when working with athletes. Not let's do some plyometrics so we can look great on Instagram or whatever it is, documentation. Your coworker is like, yeah, really, that was a really good plyo. Yeah. That has nothing to do with it. It has no impact on their healing process. It gives them confidence, but it doesn't help them with stress or strain across time. It just helps them give confidence to go back to sport. But if they're overtraining and under recovering, what does that plyo mean to them? Nothing. It puts them back at risk. So what you need to do is help identify where the risk is. That's where sports PT will go. And if that sounds like you, that's like everything you've ever wanted, that's why you need to be in my mentorship programs. You need to be inside my courses. You need to be somewhere inside where people just think differently. They're not in the same monotonous process of doing the same Therax, the same 8 to 10 pelvic stability bridges, single leg RDLs, mini bands, clamshells. Like that just gets old over time. You figure that out. That's why anybody who's in a practice for 1 to 2 years is because they haven't figured it out yet. So they keep trying. They keep, thinking like, oh, this is going to be the day. This back pain patient's really going to get better with the same clamshells I've given out to the same 2,000 people this year. And then at year 3 and 4, you're like, gosh, this is not working. What's going on? But I'll change my job. I'll figure it out. Year 5, you're like, none of that fixed it. It's because we're looking into the wrong lens. And that's what's happening right now. So I told you it's gonna get a little spicy. It's the truth, and I'm telling you because I've worked in the pro athlete, I've worked in pros, I've worked with pro athletes, and this is what they love. That's why they come to see me. That's why they come to see my team, is because we can take it from a different lens and say, why did this happen? I'm easily gonna get you out of pain. It's gonna take you 10 weeks. And lastly, how do we stop this from coming back? Because this has been a problem and I don't need you in here missing 4 or 6 weeks. Again, I despise when an athlete gets re-injured underneath the same injury I just did because I missed something. It wasn't because their ankle was still unstable. It's because I missed something that was too zoomed out for what I was looking through. So if you're like, all right, Chris, fine. I want to get better at this. What do I do? There's 2 options. Number 1, I have my upcoming sports PT Kickstarter course. This is a culmination of all the domains of sports rehab, performance enhancement, roles and responsibilities of a PT, on the field coverage, performance enhancement, all of injury prevention, strength and conditioning, all the above consolidated into one course over 8 weeks. And for those who've taken the course or not taken the course in the past, this is an 8-week course. It's very different than a 2-day CEU course. And the reason I did this is because I realized that when we take courses, you take it for 2 days and you forget on Monday already, like what happened. So to help with retention, I created a course for 2 hours. Currently, whenever you listen to this for 2024, we are doing Wednesdays at 5 o'clock. So it's 8 Wednesdays in a row, or 8 Wednesdays with one break in there, for 2 hours from 5 to 7 Pacific Standard Time. And every week you've got homework, you got modules to work on, you got strength and conditioning programs, you have things to do on your own. And it gives you accountability, it gives you responsibility. So that way you can actually implement. That's the problem with the CEU, is like there's no time to implement. So when you go back to practice, you go back to your mundane routine. With this course, I separated it so you can have the intent, you can have that time to process it, try it with a couple of patients, figure it out, come back to the course, ask questions. It's one of my favorite courses I've ever delivered, and it's because of that, right? The insight, and you join my community, ask me questions in the meantime, join the group, put your homework assignments in there, and everyone gets to see that. And to me, it feels like a group, it feels like a community again. And that is the army of sports PTs I am going to create, whether that's you now or later. I'd love to have you inside the course. That's my Kickstarter. It is January 10th of 2024. You can learn more at drchrisgarcia.com/Kickstarter. And the other option is, if you've already taken it or you're well ahead of the game and you're absolutely frustrated and you don't want to wait any longer, then you join my academy. And that's for sports PTs to meet monthly. These are higher level conversations. It's not what's the best exercise. This is higher level conversation. If you're fresh out of school looking for the best exercise or mobilization, this is definitely not for you. This is higher level. Am I on the right path? What do I need to do? Here's my challenges. Where am I going wrong? It's very introspective. effective. That takes a right person who's gone through enough frustration to figure that out. So if you're very early, the Academy is not for you. The Kickstarter is perfect. If you have been able to put it together, just need a little bit of fine tuning and a little bit of support. You need some accountability. You haven't been able to do it on your own. You said you're going to write that program. You said you're going to take that test. You said you're going to sign up for that thing, and you just haven't been able to. That is literally a reason why some people join, is because it's literally everything you should be doing, but you're not doing because you're a human. And my job here is to point you in the right direction and tell you what lies ahead and what challenges you have ahead of that. So there you have it. I'm going to end my rant now. But if you love this content, either the Kickstarter, the Academy is going to be perfect for you. It's no fluff. For those who are new to my podcast, this is the truth. This is the challenge that you will have as a professional, and that's what lies ahead. So I will see you guys on the next episode. I hope you guys are doing amazing and enjoying life and enjoying every aspect of it. Okay, I'll see you guys on the next episode. Take care.